Welcome to the Story a Day podcast. This is Julie Duffy, encouraging you to be a writer today, not someday. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is Julie from the Story a Day podcast. Last week, I talked with Angela Ackerman of Writers Helping Writers and the One Stop for Writers about how we can use challenges like NaNoWriMo to boost our confidence and just basically help us as writers. This week, I've got the second part of that interview where we really dig into the writing resources that she and her partner, Becca Puglisi, have put together over the past, I think, 8 years. These Emotion Thesaurus books and the One Stop for Writers resource. We talk about how the details that you choose in your writing are important for more than just painting a scene, how they direct the reader, how they inform your story. We talk about how you can use emotion and your character to build plot and about Angela and Becca's mission. So sit back, relax and enjoy listening to us geeking out about all things writing. So let me ask you about this amazing series of books that you've put together. Now, you said that I almost don't have to introduce them because everyone I talk to has heard of these books. So the Emotion Thesaurus, I hadn't realized until recently that this all kind of started from, I think, if I'm reading between the lines, some frustration with going to classes and workshops and conferences and hearing this one piece of advice that everybody doles out and nobody can really explain. So can you tell me about that?
Yeah, show don't tell. That's the big one. And you know, it's one of those things where you start to talk about it like you get eye rolls, right? Because it's just something that everyone, I got it. Show don't tell. I got it. But we don't really think deep enough about what that looks like. And it's tough to know, like, okay, show don't tell, I get the idea of it, but you know, how do you know when to show and how do you know when to tell? You can't show all the time because your novel is going to turn into 400,000 words and readers are going to fall asleep on the first page because they're going to be caught up in the description of the main character's dress. So, you know, how do you decide which details to show and what not to show? And so for us, you know, as we were trying to figure this out, the one area that really tripped us up the most was emotions. Our characters were always kind of displaying emotions the same way. You know, if they were scared, they were shivering, or, you know, their heart was racing, or, you know, their voice was stuttery. And it was just like,
mine have a lot of breath. They're always sighing or gasping or
eyes are rolling, or they're, you know, and so it just, you look at you have this beautiful idea in your head and like you can envision this scene and then you're writing it down and it's just so, it's like, you got a crayon, you know, instead of a pen, you got this crayon and you're trying to and it's frustrating, right? Because there's a disconnect between what you see in your mind and how you're conveying that idea onto the page. And so Becca and I, both of us, we struggled in this area. Our characters were always doing the same things. And we thought there has got to be a way to sort of broaden your thought process about what a character can do, you know, when they're feeling excited versus scared versus anxious versus grateful. Like, what does that look like? You know, what does a character think about when they're feeling those emotions? What's happening inside? What are all those visceral sensations? And what are the vocal cues that go with dialogue that indicate these different emotions? And so we started building these lists so that they would help us, you know, figure out, okay, well, let's look at fear. Like, what are all the things we do, you know, or people that we see, or if you watch a movie or read a book or whatever, what are the different ways that a person typically displays fear? And how is that different from terror? You know, because there's escalations of emotions and things will shift and change between your thought process and the things that you do physically and how your body reacts to any particular emotion. And, you know, we found this super helpful and we decided, you know, other people probably maybe have problems in this area. And so we started blogging about it. And that's where the idea kind of really took off. People found it and they were just like, oh my gosh, like I really need these brainstorming lists. They're so helpful. And so we just sort of ran with it there and then started publishing them as books, starting with the Emotion Thesaurus. But I mean, we've tackled all different areas of description, from emotion to setting to character traits We've looked at emotional wounds, character arc through, it's not a book, but it is a source that we've created that's at One Stop for Writers that looks at character motivation, inner and outer motivation, inner and outer conflict, and things like that. Weather, symbolism, physical features, oh, just tons, talents and skills. I think we're at 16 thesauruses. We're actually working on number 17 now with relationships. So we have written a lot of thesauruses, and not all of them are as they're not all books, but they're all at One Stop for Writers. And it's just simply comes down to Beck and I don't have clones. If we had clones, everything would be different. But
this just started from you being curious about how to.
Yeah. I think for both of us, neither one of us has a background in psychology, but it really, the connection between emotion and behavior is so incredibly complex and interesting. I think for both Beck and I, we just became fascinated about human behavior and why people do the things that they do. And this sort of has woven into really evolving our idea of what show don't tell is. So it's not about, showing something so that readers can see the scene or understand what's happening. It's about cherry picking details that go deeper, cherry picking the best details about your setting that are going to reinforce what's happening in the scene, that are going to enhance the mood, that are going to foreshadow, that are going to steer the character's emotions and therefore steer the reader's emotions. How can you use setting description to maybe pull on some backstory elements, reminding the character of something that happened to them in the past in a way that's going to make them maybe emotionally volatile in a scene where it's going to cause them to screw up in some way? Or maybe it's the opposite. You create a specific scene that's important and you specifically choose a setting that reminds them of like their greatest achievement. And so they're in a different mindset. And so they're ready to just go out there and get them. So there's just so many ways where we can weave human psychology into every aspect of storytelling. And so that's kind of what we've done is it doesn't matter what the topic is. We encourage writers to go deeper and to do more with the details that they choose to put on the page. It's not about describing, a red scarf, or details that are just painting the picture. You do need some of that, but if you choose specific details that are going to reinforce a certain message or reinforce a certain feeling that the reader's going to have, a different mood, or it's going to show you the shape of a character, it's going to reveal things about them, their personality, or their values, or their morals, or their behaviors or habits. Like there's just so many ways we're choosing specific type of thinking harder about the details we share, thinking harder about what we show. That is going to just create this really incredible immersive experience into showtelling, or into storytelling for readers. So that's kind of what those books are all about. Whatever the topic is, that's kind of our focus on weaving in the human psychology and show don't tell. And it's important to use those details as hooks for readers, right? So if you were to tell the reader what a character's emotional wound is, well, now they know. So, I know this horrible thing happens and maybe I feel sympathy for the character that this thing happened. But better is to actually reveal it in little bits and pieces through hooks, through certain details, through certain things that the character does that maybe are a little bit odd. Right there, the reader's desire to know why is going to pull them deeper into the story. Paying attention to the character's behavior in every scene as they go along, it's how readers understand what they should care about, who they should root for, what's important and what isn't. And so we want to remember that. And how we make sure that our behavior is something that readers can follow is by making sure that it all lines up with who our characters are deep down.
So I'm guessing that one of the other things that people ask a lot, they ask about techniques of writing things. One of the other things people ask about is, I'm not good at plot, they might say. I'm guessing you have some thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, plot. When I started writing, I was the kind of person where I was all about the plot. Like I would come up with these amazing plots and then I'm like, okay, I need a character to like dunk in here and do the things. And it took me time to understand that I had that backwards, that, our characters are, they have agency and, the events, the outer events that are happening they are pushing and nudging our characters in certain ways, but how our characters respond is really, the important piece of the puzzle. I think digging into understanding who your character is, especially their backstory, like the things that happen to them before they reach the doorstep of the story. So different positive and negative experiences that they've had in the past, thinking about what that looks like will kind of give you an idea of who your character is at the start of the story and what are they struggling with and what's missing from their life. Once you understand what your character needs more than anything else, you'll know what your goal should be, or you'll be able to figure out what the goal is, because your character's goal is going to be the very thing that is missing from their life.
So you can't just have them randomly reacting because you want to have another explosion in your book, right? There has to,
well, and
has to be a reason.
That's where understanding who they are deep down and what their demons are is really important.
So you're doing wonderful work. Thank you for that. Where can people find out more about what you're up to at the moment?
I recommend just keeping in touch with us through Writers Helping Writers, which is our main website and blog. We have a newsletter too that you can subscribe to, and that's kind of where we update, what book is next, what's our timeline, what are we working on now, things like that. Beck and I also have a second site called One Stop for Writers. And as I mentioned, we've been creating these thesauruses now for, I think, well over 10 years. And so we've accumulated quite a few of them, a lot of them that aren't in book form. And so they're all at One Stop for Writers. So if you want to see them all together in a single database, that would be where to go to get those.
So who would that be best for? I mean, because that's, you said it's a database, so people can go in and search or...
Yeah, they're One Stop for Writers is Beck and I, we absolutely love helping writers. And that's why we created these guides, is we needed to, we believe that there are certain ways information can be delivered that's going to make writing easier. Just like these guides help you brainstorm different areas of your character and your plot and the world building and different elements of your story, it's going to make it so much easier. And we love books, but books can also be limiting for us in some ways, because Beck and I have ideas about how to use this information and how to build tools that will best utilize the type of information that we have created in this database. And so One Stop for Writers not only has all this information in one place, a lot of it is interconnected. So for example, if you went to the negative trait thesaurus, you would not only see all the different behaviors and actions that a character might display if they had a particular flaw, but it could lead you to other places on the site, like what kind of emotional wounds might have caused this particular flaw. Because in the case of negative traits, flaws are emotional shielding that the character brings on board after they've been hurt in some way by life, because they feel like they need to protect themselves. And so you can go right from one thesaurus to another thesaurus, and then that thesaurus may lead you to another thesaurus with more detail, and pretty soon you've got a whole character. We also build tools that specifically demystify some of the harder areas of storytelling. So we actually have a character builder that uses all the thesauruses that we built for characterization, and it prompts you every step of the way to think about your character's backstory. What are the areas that you should know? And so it'll help you brainstorm your character's emotional wounds. And from that, understand what is the character's biggest fear and what is the misbelief that they have that's kind of steering their behavior in the story, and all the negative coping mechanisms that come with that. And then your character's personality and their behavior and all different aspects of the character. Whatever you're looking at brainstorming, it pulls the information from that particular thesaurus and it builds a profile. It makes it really easy because all the information is right there, and you literally just choose, from, okay, I think that my character has these particular traits. Then you can look at those traits and what behaviors resonate with you as far as how your character would behave. And it just pulls all this information together. One of the best things that the character builder tool does is it has something called a character arc blueprint. And it's because we've made the tool smart enough to understand which key pieces of details that you're going to brainstorm are actually going to be part of their character arc. So things like their emotional wound and the lie that they believe, different things like story stakes, their outer motivation, what is their goal, all the different pieces that filter into character arc, it pulls them as you brainstorm them, and it'll put it into a blueprint that literally will tell you what your character's journey is going to be in the story, what's motivating them, how are they going to try to achieve their goal. Our big mission, I think, between our books and One Stop for Writers is just to shorten their learning curve. Every writer gets to a point in time where it's like you understand the elements of storytelling well enough to realize just how much you don't know.
Yes.
And it's kind of this soul-sucking moment where you're like, oh my God, am I really like in this to like figure this? Like, there's so much to know.
Right, because if you're interested in writing, you're probably that kid who at school your teacher said, "Oh, you're a really good writer," and then you start doing it and you realize there's more than just putting words together, right?
Yeah, well, it is, right? And so, our mission is really like, how can we shorten that learning curve? I mean, those stories, for me personally, growing up, you asked, who was little Angela when she was young. I was bullied a lot as a kid. I spent a lot of time alone with my nose in a book because it was a safe place. And I have always hung on to that my entire life. And I believe that books can be really healthy for people. They give people a way to explore ideas, explore emotions, explore things about themselves in a way that's safe. And it encourages them maybe to think about things in a little bit deeper way. And yes, not every book is like this deep, oh my gosh, sort of thing. There's always the entertainment aspects of books too. But, by watching a character go through the trials and tribulations of a story, we're watching them on a character arc, trying to achieve something. And it reminds us that we're all on our own character arcs. We're all on our own journeys, trying to figure life out, trying to figure out our place, trying to figure out how to navigate. And I think that's very affirming. And so I'm all about, how can I help you get that story out that's in your head so that it can help somebody else? And I think that that's just something that really steers Beck and I.
Well, thank you for the work you're doing. I think that's a perfect note to end it on.
Thank you.
It's just, we want more stories out there. We want more, more people telling stories, and you're helping facilitate that. So that's a wonderful thing. Thank you so much.
Oh no, thank you. Thanks for having me on. So
everyone should check out helpingwriters.net and see what Becca and Angela are up to these days and what's coming next. It's been a wonderful journey so far. So looking forward to see what you guys come up with next.
Thank you. Us too.
Thanks for listening. Why not come over to the blog at storyaday.org and check out this week's writing prompts and articles. And in the meantime, have a great creative week. And of course, keep writing.